Hey there, friends. Are you ready to be mad again? Because we're going to do 12 more chapters of Britney Spears, The Woman in Me. Now, my advice to Justin Timberlake at this point in the proceedings is to change your name and move to Canada. That's really the only way you're coming back from what's in this book, especially after we get into these next 12 chapters. So, let's hit it. By the way, if I look a little dewy, if I look a little rosy today, it's because I'm having hot flashes. Crazy, crazy hot flashes. I thought I could either not do a video or I could sit here in all of my perimenopausal glory and just, let it all hang out there. So, if you're young and you're thinking to yourself, I will never be fat, sweaty, and covered in rosacea, you will someday. It's happening. It's on the way. It's on the way. Even Britney Spears has hot flashes. She didn't put it in the book, but I'm sure she does. Also, let me go ahead before we start and just show you what has happened to my highlighter, because this is how juicy this book is. I started this book and I started highlighting it. And that's what the highlighter looked like when I started, right? That's at the prologue. That's what the highlighter looked like when I started. If I just flip back randomly to all right, we'll go to chapter 38, right? That's what it looks like in chapter 38. I wore out a whole highlighter on this book. Chapter 12 ends with Britney having that abortion and Justin, anyway, here's wonderwalling her while she's, dying on the bathroom floor, begging to go to the hospital. And she thinks, she didn't see her breakup coming. And then chapter 13, this is how he ends their relationship. Ultimately, he ended our relationship by text message while I was on the set for the video for the Overprotected remix by Darkchild. After seeing the message as I sat in my trailer between takes, I had to go back out and dance. She says she was devastated. It really sounds like she went through a Bella Swan on this one, okay? I went back home to Kentwood and I couldn't talk to my family or friends. I barely left the house. I was that messed up. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling. Now, what could make you feel better at a time like this? Justin flew out to Louisiana to visit me. He brought me a long letter he'd written and framed. He framed it. It says he brought me a long letter he'd written and framed. He broke up with her via text. He brought a letter, but the letter was framed. He had already framed this. What kind of ego does this man have? Obviously a huge one, but I mean the amount of ego that it would take to be I know it'll make my ex-girlfriend feel better after I coerce her into having an abortion and then break up with her via text message. I know what'll really make her feel better is if I write her a letter and frame it. The beginning of chapter 14, she is still on tour. And while she really loved when the tour started, she is not feeling it now. She says she didn't give herself enough time to heal from her breakup. She also shares an anecdote about going to do a show in Mexico City and their buses being ambushed. And then she said that a thunderstorm canceled the last show, the last date of the tour. And she says, but when I told people after finishing the tour that I wanted to rest, everyone seemed nervous. When you're successful at something, there's a lot of pressure to keep on doing it, even if you're not enjoying it anymore. That's really true, because believe me, there are parts of my job that I don't enjoy that I continue doing. And I'm not saying I'm not on the same level as Britney Spears. I'm just saying that there are just parts of my job that I don't enjoy, but since I'm successful at it, I have to keep doing them. And I can only imagine that the pressure would be 10,000 times more when you have people on your payroll, which, she would have at this time. Because she wanted to take a break and everybody panicked, her management team was like, well, then you need to do this interview with People magazine to show them that you really are doing fine, right? Because just taking a break is something that people don't do, right? So they want to make sure that she's out there and everybody knows that she's not having a breakdown or something, right? They had me empty out my purse to reveal that I wasn't carrying drugs or cigarettes. All they found was juicy fruit gum, vanilla perfume, mints, and a bottle of St. John's wort. My daughter is doing beautifully, my mom told the reporter confidently. She's never, ever been close to a breakdown. And I find that interesting that they were so quick, like they wanted so badly to dispel the idea that she had possibly had a breakdown, when later they would use her mental health as a weapon against her to imprison her and steal from her. Spoilers. She says that one of the things that made her breakup from Justin really difficult was the fact that his family was like the only family that she really had. Like, she was really close to his family and she wasn't as close to hers because of all that dysfunction that was mentioned earlier in the memoir. My mom was trying to recover from her divorce from my dad, which she'd finally gone through with. Depressed and self-medicating, she could barely get up off the couch. My dad was nowhere to be found, and my little sister, well, when I tell you she was a total bitch, I'm not exaggerating. Total bitch is in italics. So, Jamie Lynn, total bitch is in italics. What am I kidding? She's already read it. And cried and gotten angry. She probably swept everything off of some kind of surface in a rage. Britney says that she'd always been a worker bee. And that's what it, you know, obviously we've been through this whole memoir with her to this point. So yes, she's always been a worker bee in the family. And so she wasn't noticing the stuff going on back home. But when I came home, I saw how things had changed. My mom would serve Jamie Lynn while she watched TV, bringing her little chocolate milkshakes. It was clear that girl ruled the roost. Meanwhile, it was like I was a ghost child. So she felt like she was home and nobody paid attention to her or acknowledged her even, like that she could walk into a room and it was like nobody saw her. I felt betrayed by how Jamie Lynn had changed. I'd bought a house for Jamie Lynn to grow up in. She was not exactly grateful for it. She'd later say, why did she get us a house? Like it was some sort of imposition. But that house had been a gift. I'd bought it because our family had needed a new house, and I'd wanted her to have a better life than I had. So basically, in trying to give her sister a better life than she'd had, it sounds kind of like Jamie Lynn became a spoiled little monster. Chapter 15, she talks about Donatella Versace, and going to parties with her, and that she mentions that she met a guy. Okay, this is, now she feels bad for this. She makes a little apology, but this is an absolute motif. Like, you can't say it's a mood, you can't say it's a vibe. This is so extreme that it is a motif, right? She meets this guy. He looks beautiful. She says she thought he was Brazilian. He had dark hair. He was smoking a blunt. He was a bad boy. And she just wanted to have sex with him. Like, that was it. And he was talking to two girls, but then of course, like, he wanted to talk to Britney Spears, and she's like, yeah, we're going back to the hotel. We headed to my car, but during the drive, he did something that just turned me off. Honestly, I can't even remember what it was, but it was one little thing that really irritated me. So I told the driver to pull over, and without saying a word, I kicked the guy out on the side of the road and left him there. She says now that she's a mom, she wouldn't leave someone in a strange place, and, but, I was only 20 and all that stuff. But no, that's fine. I think it's absolutely fine, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's gorgeous. That I really just do. Like I said, it's a motif. So Justin was going to release his solo album, Justified. By the way, I thought that was corny back then, and it's even more corny now. Like, as we've seen him sort of like slide through his career, like in a very cheeseball way, I have always thought that Justified was completely ridiculous. Anyway. So he goes on 2020, he plays an unreleased song called Don't Go, parentheses, Horrible Woman. Like, he knows that his breakup has been very public, so everybody knows what this song is about. Less than a month later, he released the video for his song Cry Me a River, in which a woman who looked like me cheats on him, and he wanders around sad in the rain. In the news media, I was described as a harlot who'd broken the heart of America's golden boy. The truth, I was comatose in Louisiana, and he was happily running around Hollywood. May I just say that on his explosive album and in all of the press that surrounded it, Justin neglected to mention the several times he'd cheated on me. Well, that's what we heard. We heard she made out with Wade Robson, and he had been cheating on her nonstop. And then that boy went and he made a whole album vilifying her after he coerced her into an abortion, after he sat on the bathroom floor and played guitar while she wanted to go to the hospital. but he didn't want to ruin his career. So no, that's out of the question. After all that stuff, he played the victim. Oh my gosh, we were so snowed. We were. I say we because I was one of the people that was like, oh, well, I knew that whole like virginal thing, like couldn't be true. It was just a thing. If you were there in the O's, you were set up from the go to just absolutely blame women for everything, to hate women for everything. I mean, remember, this was a time when photographers were ambushing young women outside of nightclubs and taking pictures while they were getting out of the car, taking pictures up their skirts. And then we were all told that it actually was the fault of the girls for not wearing underwear. Like, if they didn't want that to happen, they should have been wearing underwear. And nobody ever seemed to stop and ask, why would it be okay to take a picture of their crotches if they were wearing underwear? What made that better? Wouldn't we all just be sitting there going, oh, look, we can see her panties? But no, it was not the photographers. It was not the men involved in the scenario. It was these young girls. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm angry about the way the 2000s went down, basically. The entire 2000s. She felt like people really loved his album because at the time that getting revenge on women who were unfaithful or getting revenge on bitchy women was a really popular theme in music. And it was. I don't think Justin realized the power he had in shaming me. I don't think he understands to this day. Well, he turned his Instagram comments off, so I think he's starting to get an understanding. Justin told everyone that he and I had had a sexual relationship, which some people have pointed out depicted me as not only a cheating slut, but also a liar and hypocrite. Given that I had so many teenage fans, my managers and press people had long tried to portray me as an eternal virgin. Never mind that Justin and I had been living together and I'd been having sex since I was 14. One of the things she says, though, is that she actually liked that Justin did that like sort of outed her as being sexually active, because that way it was over. It was out there and it was over. She said that she played into the portrayal of her as a virgin because so many people like were making a big deal out of it. Like, she knew it wasn't anybody's business, but that was all people wanted to focus on. I worked so hard on my music and on my stage shows, but all some reporters could think of to ask me was whether or not my breasts were real. They were, actually, and whether or not my hymen was intact. That's all they ever talked about was her body and her virginity. She's not wrong. She was there. She talks about how she believes in karma and how she feels like sort of empathic towards other people, and she feels other people's emotions very deeply, and then she sort of apologizes for going on about New Age stuff and says that, yeah, you know, she'll stop, but because the point is, I was so sensitive and I was so young and I was still reeling from the abortion and the breakup. I didn't handle things well. Justin framed our time together with me as the bad guy, and I believed it. So ever since then, I felt like I'm under a sort of curse. Like, seriously, Britney, it wasn't your fault. I hope somebody takes her aside. I hope many people took her aside during the writing of this book and held her hands and looked her in the face and said, it was not your fault. You are not a bad girl. That was not your fault. He is a bad man. He's a bad... She also feels that she had a paranormal experience out in the desert while talking about aliens. There have been so many times when I was scared to speak up because I was afraid somebody would think I was crazy. But I've learned that lesson now the hard way. You have to speak the thing that you're feeling, even if it scares you. You have to tell your story. You have to raise your voice. That's a really nice message, Britney. In chapter 16, we talk about meeting Colin Farrell. Basically, she thought he was handsome, so she drove over to his movie set and, like, to meet him. Just, like, showed up on a movie set. She was like, there was no security. I just walked up. And the director, like, was like, oh, it's like Britney Spears. Like, come sit in my chair. And that's how she met Colin Farrell. We wound up having a 2-week brawl. Brawl is the only word for it. We were all over each other, grappling so passionately it was like we were in a street fight. I believe that, because when you look at that guy, especially, like, maybe not so much now, but yeah, even now though, you look at that guy and that's how you know it's gonna be. Like, you look at Colin Farrell and you know that the sex is gonna be like smashing into walls on your way back to a dirty apartment, like, you know, ricocheting off of like badly chipped walls under a crackling fluorescent light. I haven't thought a lot about it, but he had a movie come out, The Recruit, and he asked her to go with him to the premiere. I wore a pajama top. I thought it was a real shirt because it had miniature studs on it, but I see the photos and I think, yeah, I definitely wore a full-blown pajama top to Colin Farrell's premiere. I love it. It's fine. It was the O's. What were you gonna do? She's struggling at this point. She's very depressed. Most days I couldn't even bring myself to call a friend on the phone. The thought of going out and being brave on stage or at clubs, even at parties or dinners, filled me with fear. Joy around groups of other people was rare. Most of the time I had serious social anxiety. And then she explains social anxiety, and I think, honestly, I think a lot of performers have that. I think that that's probably why they're performers, because they're able to like communicate and do things, but with a barrier there between them and the people they're communicating with. So they're able to get their thoughts out, they're able to get like their creative energy out, but without there having to be like a back and forth, because the back and forth, if you have social anxiety, is exhausting. I mean, I convince myself like 9 times a day, if I'm out with friends, I'm like, they don't want to be here with me. They are sorry they invited me. And that's just what goes through my head nonstop. But I can get on a camera and I can talk to all of you and I can be like, yeah, in a month I can go back and look at YouTube comments and feel like there's a sense of community there. Like, it's very strange. Yes, you think you're in a parasocial relationship with me? I'm in a parasocial relationship with you. Bleh! She went and lived in New York City alone to try to escape stuff, but she hardly ever left her apartment there. But she said one of the few times she did, she was in an elevator and somebody said something behind her and she laughed and turned around, and it was Robin Williams. One of my few visitors during that strange, surreal time was Madonna. She walked into the place and immediately, of course, she owned the room. I remember thinking, it's Madonna's room now. Yeah. That's how I would be. Madonna could come to my house and I would just be like, this is Madonna's house now. Jenny doesn't live here anymore. Jenny doesn't deserve to live here anymore. This is Madonna's house. I was confused about my life. She tried to mentor me. And she talks about sort of the wisdom that Madonna gave her about how she's going to be treated by men in the business, how sexism is going to affect her. And Madonna really did try to sort of like bring her, sort of regulate that feeling of like, you know, you're going to be under constant attack. We decided to perform together at the VMAs. Every time we rehearsed it, we did an air kiss. About 2 minutes before the performance, I was sitting on the side of the stage and thinking about my biggest performance to date at the VMAs, where I pulled off a suit to reveal a sparkly outfit. I thought to myself, I want a moment like that again this year. With the kiss, should I just go for it? Yeah. I just have to, she doesn't mention it in here. She doesn't mention it in here. But one of my biggest and most angry feelings about that Madonna and Britney kiss at the VMA was how quickly they cut away from the 3 women on stage to get the reaction of Justin Timberlake in the crowd, right? There are 3 beautiful, powerful, sexy, talented women on stage, but we need to see what Justin Timberlake thinks about it. We need to know how he reacted to it. Nobody cares about you, Justin Timberlake. You go home. She really liked the song, Me Against the Music. Her team was like, I don't think it's going to work. And she said, what if we do a feature on it? And that's how Madonna ended up on it. She said it's still one of her favorite songs. On the first day of our shoot for the song's video, which was to last 2 or 3 days, we were told a seam had come undone on Madonna's white suit, and a seamstress had to be called to fix it, so there would be a delay in our start time. I wound up having to sit in my trailer for hours waiting for the suit to be fixed. Really? I thought. I didn't even know taking so much time for oneself was an option. If I broke a heel on my shoe, I would never make production take the 5 minutes to let me fix it. I would do whatever the director told me to do, even if I had to hobble onto the set without a heel, even if I had to show up barefoot. So Britney has now met a woman who has showed her like, oh, actually, you get to have all the time you want. You know, you don't have to, you run the show. You're the thing that they need, not the other way around. So she hit this point in her career where she should be in charge, but she's still acting like, you know, like a Disney Studios employee. It was an important lesson for me, one that would take a long time for me to absorb. She demanded power, and so she got power. Thank you, Britney. I'm taking that with me. And thank you, Madonna, for telling Britney that, because I am absolutely going to use that as a philosophy in my life from now on. I mean, it works for women. It works for people that don't have a gender, right? Chapter 17, there is a huge shift in her life. She was really happy with how In the Zone was going. She won a Grammy for Toxic, and she was promoting the album. And all of a sudden one day there's a knock on her apartment door and 4 men walk in, 3 of them that she doesn't recognize. I'd never seen their faces before in my life. The 4th was my father. They proceeded to sit me down on a sofa, the same one I have to this day in my bedroom. Immediately they started peppering me with questions, and more questions. I was mute. I wasn't willing to talk with anyone. I had nothing to say. She doesn't say what they talked about. But then the next day, they say that she's going to have this interview with Diane Sawyer. She felt like she was too traumatized to talk to anybody, but this was happening. She was doing this Diane Sawyer interview. I'd often retreated to my apartment to be alone. Now I was being forced to speak to Diane Sawyer there and cry in front of the entire nation. It was completely humiliating. I wasn't told what the questions would be ahead of time. It turned out that they were 100% embarrassing. I was too vulnerable then, too sensitive to do this type of interview. She asked things like, he's going on television and saying you broke his heart. You did something that caused him so much pain, so much suffering. What did you do? Yeah, what did you do? What did you do, Britney? You made out with Wade Robson while he was fucking his way around Vegas? How dare you? How very dare. I shouldn't have been forced to speak on national TV, forced to cry in front of this stranger, a woman who was relentlessly going after me with harsh question after harsh question. Instead, I felt like I had been exploited, set up in front of the whole world. If you go back and watch Diane Sawyer's interviews and stuff, Diane Sawyer is a fucking menace. She is terrible. She was terrible to so many women in the O's. That seems to be her thing. Go look up some of the times that she's interviewed. She is just like a dog ripping the crotch out of your favorite pair of underwear on laundry day. It is absolutely bizarre. I don't know. I don't know what her problem is, but somebody needs to fucking fix it. I honestly feel like that moment in my life should have been a time for growing and not sharing everything with the world. It would have been the better way to heal, but I had no choice. It seemed like nobody really cared how I felt. So she's already like a product, right? She goes home and does Christmas, and then for New Year's Eve, she goes to Las Vegas with some friends from a tour and hangs out with Paris Hilton. And she says it was just innocent fun. They went out. They were, young 20-somethings, went out, got drunk, danced on tables on New Year's Eve. And some of her old friends were there. And that's when she drunkenly got the idea, we should go get married. People have asked me if I loved him. To be clear, he and I were not in love. I was just honestly very drunk, and probably in a more general sense at that time of my life, very bored. The next day, my whole family flew out to Vegas. They showed up and stared at me with these eyes of such fury. I looked around. What happened last night, I asked. Did I kill someone? You got married, they said, as if that might be somehow worse. We were just having fun, I said, but my mom and dad took it so seriously. So yeah, I would have taken it seriously as well, because she has a ton of money and she's just married someone who knows that she has a ton of money. There's no way that they had a prenup. I would do, to protect my 20-something child, I probably would also be like, you need to get this annulled immediately, right? I probably would have freaked out too. So I'm not saying that her parents did so because they were concerned about her. I'm sure it was just that they were concerned about their money and making their money. But I would do something like that. I would go to Vegas and tell my kid, what the f did you do if they got married suddenly and put their huge fortune and career at stake. But I would not go to the lengths that they later go to. That's why I know it's different. That's why I know their motivations is different. I thought it was strange they got so involved so quickly and so decisively without my even having time to quite regret what I'd done. And again, it'd be different if you're 20 years old and you're broke and you're in Vegas and you get married on a lark. That's one thing. But if you are rich and you have built this empire, you you can't do that shit. Like, and I think that if it were my kid, I would have just been like, they have no clue. Like, they have no clue at how much danger that they just legally put their finances and stuff into. And that's why I would go, because I would just assume like, okay, at 20 something and drunk, you don't think of that. Not defending her parents, just saying that I probably would have been in, if I were in their shoes, I would have done the same thing. But a lot of my reactions and things I do are indefensible anyway. In fact, my family was so against the wedding that I started to think maybe I'd accidentally committed a brilliant act, because I realized something about my being under their control and not having a stronger connection to someone else had become very, very important to them. Yeah, there's the difference right there, right? Between what most parents would do. I think most parents would be like, hey, you're in your 20s, you're endangering your money and your career, you need to get this annulled. But for them, it was more like, oh no, you cannot have somebody around. Oh no, what if this is real? Perhaps it's worth mentioning that by this point, I was supporting them financially. Yep, totally worth mentioning. Chapter 18, she's out on tour. She's feeling estranged from her brother. She has lost Justin. She is, like I said, on tour again. On tour, always on tour. She's injured herself, and she had to reschedule a couple dates, and like at that point she just kind of was like, okay, I'm done with this tour, right? So I was craving some lightness and joy in my life. Section break. Then Kevin Federline was holding me. That's the thing I remember best. And she talks about how she met him and that they would go swimming and he would just like just hug her, like just hold on to her. It was beyond a sexual thing. It wasn't about lust. It was intimate. He would hold me as long as I wanted to be held. Had anyone in my life ever done that before? If so, I couldn't remember when. And was there anything better? So she is so desperate for an intimate connection with someone who loves her and who puts her first. And that's when Kevin Federline comes sliming his way in. As a woman who'd spent so much time trying to live up to society's expectations, being with a man who gave me permission to be exactly who I was felt like such a gift. Kevin had a bad boy image. Still, I had no idea when we met that he had a toddler, nor that his ex-girlfriend was 8 months pregnant with his second baby. Like, she had been together with him for a long time, and then somebody that they knew was like, you know, his ex-girlfriend just had his baby, right? Like, they've been together for like a while. So that is like the first, honestly, that's like the kind of the first warning sign is like if somebody doesn't tell you they have kids, like while one is actively on the way. It's 2004. She goes back out on tour. Kevin goes with her. They get engaged. They film Tour Diaries, which ends up being Britney and Kevin Chaotic, that was on MTV, which was edited in such a way to portray her in the worst fucking possible light. The Onyx Hotel tour was just rough. It was too sexual for a start. Justin had embarrassed me publicly, so my rebuttal on stage was to kind of go there a little bit too. But it was absolutely horrible. I hated it in the moment. In fact, I hated that entire stupid tour, so much that I prayed every night. I said, God, just make my arm break, make my leg break. Can you make something break? And then she got another knee injury. If you are praying something bad will happen to you, you're not in a good situation. I know that everybody pretty much knows that, right? Now that I was married and thinking about starting a family, I decided to start saying no to things that didn't feel right, like the Onyx tour. I parted ways with my managers. I posted a letter to fans on my website in which I told them I was going to take some time off to enjoy my life. So she figured out, like, I'm just gonna say no. And I'm going to start saying no to things, and I'm going to take back my power, right? And then she got pregnant. She was pregnant, like, for almost, like, for 2.5 years. Like, I mean, she was, like, pregnant, right? She said that she really liked food and sex when she was pregnant. But other than that, she was awful. She said, I was just so mean. I was protective over Jamie Lynn, too. After she complained to me about a co-star of hers on her TV show, I showed up on the set to have words with the actress. What I must have looked like, hugely pregnant, yelling at a teenage, and I would later learn innocent girl, are you spreading rumors about my sister? To that young actress, I'm sorry. I don't remember who it was, but I remember that did come out at the time. People were like, oh, Britney Spears showed up at Zoe 101 and was like yelling at whoever this girl was. I remember that. She had her first baby in 2005, in September of 2005. Then 3 months later, I got pregnant again. I was thrilled that I'd have 2 kids so close in age. Still, it was hard on my body, and there was a lot of sadness and loneliness in that time. I felt like so much of the world was against me. It was. The entire fucking world was against this poor girl. She is having, this is like when the paparazzi are really like, paparazzi have always been a thing, right? But it seems like in the 2000s, it's like we learned nothing from Princess Diana, and then like in the like 2000s, everybody went bonkers with the paparazzi again. Like it was, like I said, we didn't learn anything. We didn't learn a damn thing. Every day and all night, they were there waiting for me to come out. So she is already really hard on herself. She's saying like, you know, she's a people pleaser, and everybody was just really mean to her because that's kind of what was selling at the time. Just on the level of civility, it was incredibly painful to be treated with such disregard, such disgust. Everything I did with the babies was chronicled. When I drove off to escape the paparazzi with Sean Preston on my lap, that was taken as proof that I was unfit. I got cornered by the paparazzi with him in the Malibu Country Mart, too. They kept on taking my pictures. As trapped, I held him and cried. I remember that, too. I absolutely remember that. And I remember people saying, like, well, you know, they tipped them off. Oh, well, you know, she probably wanted them to do, oh, yeah, that she's going to make a lot of money off of this. It's like, no, they were, like, destroying her in real time. There's also the incident where it was like, oh, she's so unstable, she almost dropped her baby, right? Which I called that one bullshit right off the bat, because I was like, she was being shoved around, right? If you watch the video and don't just look at the still photos, you can see that while carrying a cup of water in one hand and my baby in the other arm, my heel turned and I almost went down, but I didn't fall. And in catching myself, I didn't drop either the water or the baby, who, by the way, was completely unfazed. She is just having the worst time of it right now, seriously. The magazine seemed to love nothing more than a photo they could run with the headline, Britney Spears got huge. Look, she's not wearing makeup. As if those two things were some kind of a sin. As if gaining weight was something unkind I'd done to them personally. A betrayal. At what point did I promise to stay 17 for the rest of my life? Oh my gosh, that line was also a revelation, because like I struggle so much with like aging and the way I look and I'm losing my hair and all this stuff, and I read, at what point did I promise to stay 17 for the rest of my life? Damn, I didn't know how many of us felt that pressure. Chapter 20, she talks about how she's pregnant and Kevin Federline decides he's going to start making his own music. She said she dropped by the studio and it seemed more like a clubhouse. I could smell the weed wafting out of the studio door before I even walked in. He and the other guys would all be getting high, and it felt like I was in the way. I wasn't invited to their party. So she couldn't stand, when she was pregnant, being around marijuana smoke, and it made her sick. So she like really just couldn't be around her husband, basically. She was really lonely, and she thought that maybe this was kind of how it went, that like it was, now she had already done the fame thing and now it was her turn to like stay home and have the babies, and then he got to go out and like be the famous one for a while. I gave myself pep talks. He's my husband. I'm supposed to respect him, accept him on a deeper level than I'd accept someone I was just dating. He's the father of my kids. His demeanor is different now, but if it changed, it could change back. People say he's going to break up with me while I have tiny children, like he did with the mother of his first 2 children when they were infants, but no way. How he was with his other family won't be the way he is with me. In trying to make up all these excuses in my head, I was lying to myself, totally in denial this whole time that he was leaving me. So she goes to New York. She wants to see him, and they're like, you know, oh, he doesn't want to see you. He had hired a manager off of her team, so this person who used to work for her wouldn't even talk to her because he was on K-Fed's team now. So K-Fed's going out, he's getting into the press. One time he came home late and told me he'd been at a party. Justin Timberlake was there, he said. Lindsay Lohan was too. And obviously she's not impressed because she knows these people. She's been to those parties too, right? Again and again in my life, I've seen fame and money ruin people, and I saw it happen with Kevin in slow motion. In my experience, when most people, especially men, get that type of attention, it's all over. They love it too much, and it's not good for them. Talks about people who do handle celebrity well, and she's like, I'm not one of those people. Like, for 2 years I was good at it, but after that, no, I'm not good at it. She's talking about celebrity. She says, that world isn't real, my friends. It's not real. You go along with it because of course it's going to pay the family's bills and everything. But for me, there was an essence of real life missing from it. I think that's why I had my babies. Like, of course, this is a girl who has like been, this whole thing has been like losing family after found family, and everything is chaos. So of course she's wanting to build something that she didn't have and wanting to and it seems like she tried to make that sort of thing for her sister, but her sister rejected it. So she's just stumbling around here trying to create this family that she wants. Kevin Federline needs to just, I mean, if I were him, I would change my name. I would go completely underground. I would like move to New Zealand and be a sheep farmer and hope that nobody ever recognized me. If Britney Spears said this about me, she went to Las Vegas to try to talk to him. When I found him, he had his head shaved. He was getting ready to shoot the cover for his album. He was in the studio all the time. He really thought he was a rapper now. Bless his heart, because he did take it so seriously. He really thought he was a rapper now. Bless his heart. Wow. Wow. Ouch. By the way, that's the only bless his heart or bless your heart that is in this book. Now, this girl is from the South. She employed one bless their heart, and she used it against K-Fed about him thinking he was a rapper. I love you. She wanted to go see him and talk to him. She goes to try to get access to him. Britney Spears, the most powerful celebrity, basically the most famous woman in the world, is rejected, right? I left Sean Preston at the hotel with a nanny, and I showed up at the video set. Again, I was told he didn't want to see me. He's since said that this isn't true, that he would never have done that. All I know is what I experienced. Security guards who'd worked at my home were at the door and wouldn't let me in. It felt like everyone on that set was shunning me. Yeah. For K-Fed! Can you imagine being like, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, you know, Britney Spears, I know I worked for you, but I'm riding that K-Fed train now because it seems like it's really gonna work out better? Who makes that kind of choice? Who's like, yeah, I better catch this rising star? Literally nobody out here in the random world were thinking, wow, that K-Fed's really going places. None of us were thinking that. So why are these people that are working for Britney Spears jumping ship and running to work for this guy? Talk about bad career choices. Chapter 21, she has Jaden James. And then she said her body felt fantastic. She was feeling good, but she was depressed. She was getting postpartum depression because of being constantly surrounded by the paparazzi. She felt like she couldn't protect her kids. Why is Britney so camera shy with Jaden? One headline read. Kevin and I had gotten better at hiding the kids after Jaden was born, so much so that people were wondering why no pictures of him had been released. I think if anyone had thought about that question for a second, they could have come up with some guesses. But no one was really asking the question. They just kept acting like I owed it to them to let the men who kept trying to catch me looking fat take photos of my infant sons. That is true. That was, why would you? Why would you be like, hey, look what just happened? And like that was in the O's, and now it's 2023 and Paris Hilton shares one photo of her baby and everybody's making fun of her baby. No wonder celebrities don't want to show their babies. I didn't have much interest in doing press that year, but I did one interview with Matt Lauer for Dateline. He said that people were asking questions about me, including, is Britney a bad mom? He never said who was asking them. Everyone, apparently. And he asked me what I thought it would take for the paparazzi to leave me alone. I wish he'd asked them, so whatever it was, I could do exactly that. Matt Lauer is also on my shit list. I mean, obviously we know now that he's a creepo, but he's on my shit list because he like harassed so many women back, like just right in front of us. And we were like, this is fine. I love Britney. She bought a house. I didn't like the wooden floors, so I added marble everywhere. And of course it had to be white marble. The interior designer was completely against it. He said, marble floors are super slippery and hard if you fall down. I want marble, I shouted. I need marble. It was my home and my nest. It was fucking beautiful. But I think I knew then that I'd become weird. I like that she puts it as weird. Like, you're going through a mental health crisis, I'm weird. I'm gonna start using that. I'm a little weird. I began to suspect that I was a bit overprotective when I wouldn't let my mom hold Jaden for the first 2 months. Even after that, I'd let her hold him for 5 minutes and that was it. I had to have him back in my arms. That's too much. I know that now. I shouldn't have been that controlling. Disagree, Brittany. You should definitely keep your kids away from your mom. I hope any new mothers reading this who are having a hard time will get help early and will channel their feelings into something more healing than white marble floors. Because, I mean, yeah, the being like, oh no, I have to be touching my baby, I had that. That was definitely postpartum. But still, yeah, keep your kids away from your mom. Chapter 22, she tried to dye her hair black and tried to get it blonde and turned it purple. She was working on Blackout, really enjoying that. She's still being like constantly hounded by the paparazzis who she describes as being like zombies trying to scale the walls. The album was a kind of battle cry. After years of being meticulous, trying to please my mom and dad, it was my time to say fuck you. I quit doing business the way I always had before. I started doing videos on the street myself. I would go into bars with a friend and the friend would just bring a camera and that's how we shot Gimme More. To be clear, I'm not saying I'm proud of it. Gimme More is by far the worst video I've ever shot in my life. I don't like it at all. It's so tacky. It looks like we only spent $3,000 to shoot it. And yet, even though it was bad, it worked for what it was. And the more I started going and doing things myself, the more interesting people started noticing and wanting to work with me. I wound up randomly finding really good people just by word of mouth. Brittany is right. If you follow your passion, if you just decide, I'm going to do this, I don't care if it turns out good, I don't care if it turns out bad, I'm just going to try this, I'm going to go for it. You start meeting interesting people, making new connections, and things start to change. You just have to be willing to take that step and to trust yourself and be like, I can fail. Trust yourself to fail. Even though Blackout made her feel good, she still felt like life was jerking her around. Meanwhile, Kevin was doing a lot of press, and you would have thought he'd just hit a grand slam in the World Series. I didn't know who he was anymore. Then he was asked to do a Super Bowl commercial for Nationwide. It didn't matter that the ad was him making fun of himself, playing a fast food worker who dreams of being a star. After he got that offer, I basically never saw him. It was like he was too good to even talk to me. He told everyone else that being a father was everything to him, the best thing in his life. But you wouldn't know it, because the sad truth was, he was away a lot. Because dads can say, my kids are my everything, and not see them at all for weeks and weeks and months at a time, and everybody goes, what a good dad. But a mom, you know, does disposable diapers instead of cloth, and she's the worst person who's ever lived. Chapter 23, she's talking about, she starts out talking about how much she loves Kevin, but that he is going to divorce her. My lawyer told me that Kevin was going to file for divorce no matter what. I was led to believe that it would be better if I did it first so I wasn't humiliated. And then she says, what I did not understand was that Kevin would then insist I would pay for his legal bills. And because legally I had set the divorce in motion, I would be held responsible in the press for having broken up my young family. Basically, she knew he was going to file, she filed first, and then it all just fucking blew up in her face. She's at the American Music Awards to present an award. As I waited to go out on stage, Jimmy Kimmel delivered a monologue and skit about Kevin, who he called the world's first ever no-hit wonder. They sealed a stand-in into a crate and put it on a truck and dumped it into the ocean. But this was the father of my 2 infant sons. I found the violence toward him unsettling. She didn't like that everybody's laughing about it. Everybody was having a good time making fun of Kevin Federline, and, you know, she's getting divorced. You might think that she would be like, oh yeah, fuck that guy, but she's got a good heart. And so she's like, that's my kid's dad. And, you know, I was married to him, and, you know, that's not cool. Looking back, I think that both Justin and Kevin were very clever. They knew what they were doing, and I played right into it. There was no way you could win in either of those situations. But as much as I'll own my flaws, ultimately, I know that I am a good person. Yes, you are, baby. I can see now that you have to be smart enough, vicious enough, deliberate enough to play the game, and I did not know the game. Because people were playing the game on you. People were playing the game at you. So chapter 24 opens with a bomb line. One of the people who was kindest to me when I really needed kindness was Paris Hilton. She talks about how she went out in Vegas and she was going through a partying stage. Think about it this way. She never got to have that running around wild stage, right? So now she's getting divorced. She said she's leaving her kids her kids are not home alone. They have a nanny. She's leaving her kids with the nanny and going out and partying. And people are saying she's a slut and she's on drugs. Do you want to know my drug of choice? The only thing I really did except for drinking? Adderall, the amphetamine that's given to kids for ADHD. Adderall made me high, yes, but what I found far more appealing was that it gave me a few hours of feeling less depressed. So she was abusing Adderall. She admits to that. Do you know what Paris and I did that supposedly crazy night everyone made such a big deal about when we went out with Lindsay Lohan? We got drunk. That's it. By the way, you can get a sunscreen, like a sunshade for your car windshield of them in the car, that infamous paparazzi photo of Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears and Paris Hilton in that car. I'm not saying like buy it for me, but also I drive a Chevy Trailblazer if that helps with the, you know, finding the correct dimensions. Just in case. Christmas is coming. My mom always made me feel like I was bad or guilty of something, even though I had worked so hard to be good. That's what my family has always done, treated me like I was bad. Because if they keep you down, they can continue to exploit you. No matter how many fans I had in the world, my parents never seemed to think I was worth much. They were really terrible to her as she was going through the divorce, and it's very clear that it's because they want her to have a certain image, to project a certain image, and to keep that money rolling in. They are trying to protect their nut. They are trying, you know, they don't want anything to crack it. Giving a person no grace in a hard time is just not nice, especially when you can't take as good as you give. When I started to speak up and throw it back at them a little, God knows they were far from perfect. They didn't really like it that much, but they still held so much emotional power over me. Yeah, so wow, I feel like you can really, in the way that she explains things, in the way that she structured this book, in the way that she has described things, and like I said, it's very, I don't feel like this is a ghostwriter because it's not flowery. It's just this way, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. I felt this way, I felt this way, this is what I learned. And you can, as a result, you can really feel that postpartum depression. You can really feel that feeling of she can't win. I mean, you really are in it with her. If you have not read this, do not just watch the video and go, I'll have Jen summarize it for me. Read it. Read the book. Read it. Read this book. Read this book. Read it. Read it. Read the book. Read the book. All right, so next time we will finish this bad boy off. That won't be probably until, you know, after, I don't know, after the weekend, maybe after Halloween, because I'm going away for Halloween. It's my first year that my children are old enough that they can have their own Halloween plans and not involve me. So I'm going away to the casino hotel where I can eat a lot of food and pass out and feel better about things. Anyway, I'm not gonna go Paris Hilton and Britney Spears in Vegas, but I am gonna have fun. So it'll probably be later next week. If it's before then you're welcome, darling. You're welcome. Anyway, have a good time. Check out the links in the description box, and I will catch you on the flip side.